Welcome back to Craig and Lou Go to the Ballot, and today we are talking about Proposition 30 and Proposition 38.
And we've paired those up because they are about the same thing.
Yes.
Proposition 30 is all about increasing sales and income taxes and giving the money to education. In our state, we all understand that education has been badly hurt over the last several years. Prop 38 is a different plan. Prop 30's is Jerry Brown's plan. It is broadly supported by many Democrats, a few Republicans, quite a few people in education. Prop 38, a little more controversial, is supported by largely one person,
Molly Munger.
Molly Munger, and is a very different kind of formula for raising the funds for education. And there are a few complexities here, so buckle up.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at Molly Munger's 38. If enacted, Proposition 38 is going to increase the state income tax for most Californians, resulting in what they're expecting to be revenues of about $10 billion a year. State income tax increases would end after 12 years unless the voters decide to bring it up again. Most of those funds are going to be set aside for public school districts and early childhood development programs. So it sounds like a great idea. And as we said, Molly Munger is the primary advocate behind the initiative and the primary funder of the initiative. It hasn't got a lot more support from anyone else.
And we need to bring this up at some point. I'll throw it in right now. I have a very basic problem with millionaires determining what goes on the state ballot. That is not the original intention of the people who created the current state constitution. People 100 years ago in the progressive era, this would have shocked them that millionaires were funding ballot props. Now it's common. That isn't something that's new to this election cycle, but there are several of the ballot props, Lou and I were noticing when we went over them, several of those that are principally funded by one person or by one family that is a wealthy family. This is one, and it's interesting that her measure is, despite the fact she's an activist for the Democrats principally, that her measure competes with another measure by the most prominent Democrat in the state, and they have had infighting. The problem, of course, also is that if there's more than one tax measure about the same topic, they are more likely, both of them, to fail.
Yes.
That is the danger that Jerry Brown and his proponents of Prop 30 are concerned about, seeing Prop 38 as making it less likely that either one of them will pass. If past history is an indication, that is a genuine concern.
And if you are the kind of person that would really like to see education funding cut, and Craig may disagree with me on this one, but the one you should vote for is Molly Munger's. Here's the reason why. The money that's raised by Proposition 38 will go directly to the schools. And it's got a provision in there that says you can't take that money for anything else. That's a wonderful thing. But on Proposition 30, there is a trigger that if it doesn't pass, then automatic cuts go into effect throughout the state, including education. And Proposition 38 has no provision to stop those cuts from happening. So education will still get cut. The funds coming in from this proposition will be earmarked specifically for education for the most part. But that does not stop the state from taking funds from other sources that would have ordinarily gone to education. So what we will see overall is another cut in education. So if you want to see cuts in education in the state budget, vote for Proposition 38.
If, on the other hand, you think we've had enough cuts to education in the state, and I've got a point of view here. I teach in the community college system in California. Actually, the funding for that is in with K-12 because of the way it was set up 45, 50 years ago. And I've seen what impact the cuts have had on our students, on faculty, on staff. Everybody has taken a hit. Everybody has. Fees have gone up for students. Programs have been cut. Numbers of staff and faculty have been laid off or reduced. I myself am going to be teaching less starting this fall, and that looks like a long time thing. That's going to affect my take-home pay. There are cuts everywhere. Administrators have taken cuts. throughout the system, we are barely able to continue to fulfill our primary mission anymore. I think many people agree we cannot continue cutting education. So, despite whatever intentions Molly Munger may have, and I suspect they're very good intentions, we have to seriously consider what are the consequences of voting yes on 38? What are the consequences of not seeing Prop 30 prevail? So I have a strong point of view, and it's to some extent a personal point of view on this one. Let's also talk just briefly, if you wouldn't mind, about the complexity of Prop 38. Prop 30 has one advantage. It's relatively simple. There are two taxes considered. They both have expiration dates. One is on millionaires. The other is a quarter-cent sales tax. Both of those with expiration dates are not forever. Prop 38 has a much more complex formula of how the taxes would be raised, and they also tend to be for a longer period of time. So it is perhaps a more thoroughgoing attempt to fix some of our budgeting trouble that relates to education, but the complexity of it will mean that many voters will look at it after 10 minutes, throw up their hands and say, I don't know what the heck is going on with this. My fear is that they'll also vote no on Prop 30, which is simpler and more direct.
And when we talk about complexity, the way these laws have been written has some interesting fail-safes. As we've stated, well, actually we haven't stated this, in Proposition 38 there is a clause that says if Proposition 38 passes with more votes than Proposition 30, then Proposition 30 gets killed even if it passes. If Proposition 30 passes and Proposition 38 passes, there is no provision in Proposition 30 to kill Proposition 38. So what we end up with at that point then, amazingly enough, is
chaos.
Chaos and a lot more money coming into the state, but that means everybody's taxes are going to get raised.
And what we mean when we say chaos is that there would be legal challenges and things would get tied up in court, and very possibly nothing would take effect right away, when in fact we need something to take effect in the short term. So that this is confusing. Prop 30 was put on the ballot with the hope and the belief that there wouldn't be a competing measure. And that may have been an oversight, that may have been a miscalculation, but Prop 38 did make it onto the ballot. One problem I have, of course, is when people sign for these things to put them on the ballot out in front of the supermarket or wherever they've found you, they don't think through some of these complications. They simply vote. They say, yes, the voters should decide. Well, now the voters get a complicated mess.
Yes. Which is a basic problem with the California proposition system. When it comes down to it, as much as I dislike additional taxation, I am the husband of a teacher. Not a teacher that has actually served in the public school system. She has spent her entire life in private schools. But she herself has seen the effect of the cuts in education as people abandon education to come to private. And believe it or not, people who teach in private schools do not make a lot of money. Matter of fact, in the most part, they make about a third what public school teachers make. The costs that come into education have been increasing, not due to people getting a lot more money for what they're getting paid for, but because there is much more regulation in education. The funny thing is that in the United States, we spend more money on education from kindergarten through college than any other nation in the world. In fact, 40% of all the money spent on education in the world is spent on 3% of the population of students in the United States. I mean, the United States has 3% of all the students in the world, and we spend 40% of the money on that. That's basically because we have three separate levels of education. We have a federal, we have a state, and we have local. All of them require money to fund. For my position, the only one that really does what they're supposed to do with their money, by and large, is the local. The state and federal levels, and I think Craig will probably disagree with me on this, are a waste of money.
Yeah, I disagree.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But that's my position on this, is that our schools do need money. And these these propositions, both of them, do target money for education. From my standpoint, we need to have that money in there until we can figure out what to do with the bureaucracy that actually sucks most of the money out of the process.
And I would partly agree in the sense that I think local money is vital in this whole thing, and that's principally K through 12. That's what we're talking about, and that's what these ballot props are principally about as well. This isn't about the UC system. This isn't about the CSU system. This is about K through 12 and the spending on that. And that is something California has a challenge on. Just in general, even in a good budget year, we rank in the bottom 5 states in spending per pupil. We're down next to Mississippi, and it's difficult to imagine why we have allowed it to get to that condition. It does require money to educate people. There have been huge numbers of cuts. There have been plenty of people take pay cuts. There have been program cuts. We all know about the local school districts that have cut out athletics or cut out all music and art, and in some cases have cut back on even more basic electives such as American history or political science, things I think that informed citizens need to have. So we can probably at least agree that the cuts in spending at K through 12 have got to quit. We got to stop that and find a way to fund this. Prop 30 is the best means at our immediate disposal. I think it's superior to Prop 38. Candidly, if it doesn't pass, what I'm anticipating is being unemployed next year, along with large numbers of other people, and you can expect class sizes of 40, 45 students. And every study that we can find says that's not going to work well. If we want to go to 50th in the country in spending, then you should vote. If you think that's good, vote no on Prop 30.
Yep. Okay, that's it for the tax initiatives. We're going to be coming back with Proposition 31.